全心跟随，活出你呼召。
弟兄姊妹早晨，我哋恭祝大家新年快樂，願主祝福我哋每個人過一個蒙福嘅一年。我哋感謝神俾我哋今日喺呢度咁好嘅環境敬拜佢，咁好嘅天氣。我哋亦都好高興弟兄姊妹有啲喺網上同我哋一齊敬拜。如果你喺網上嘅話，請你揾一個安靜嘅地方，我哋將下邊1個鐘頭時間攞出嚟敬拜神。我哋首先請我哋 Praise Team 帶領我哋唱歌讚美神。
弟兄姊妹早晨。咁咧今日咧係今日咩啊？咩日子啊？今日大年初一。咁啊，代表 Praise Team 祝大家身體健康，兔年繼續蒙主嘅蒙福。今日天氣好好，出邊藍天，但係冇白雲，有主嘅恩典喺當中。咁咧，我今日咧諗住咧會，其實可能見到好多弟兄姊妹啊，特別係我哋啲長輩佢哋嗰啲，會好多好有紅啦，有粉紅色啦，咁即係好開心見到弟兄姊妹去迎接呢個新年。咁咧，我見到分得太開啦，大家分得太開啦。咁我想以而家呢度我有2-3分鐘嘅時間，我哋可以一齊去起身，我哋同身邊嘅弟兄姊妹去問安拜年。當中Praise Team會繼續唱一首祝福嘅歌俾大家。咁我哋希望大家可以有一個愉快開始嘅新年，好唔好啊？大家一齊起立，我哋去同周邊弟兄姊妹去問安，我哋會唱祝福。新年快樂！
願父神的恩惠，願耶穌的慈愛，願聖靈的感動，常常與你同在。祝福祝福祝福你啊！祝福祝福祝福你，祝福祝福祝福你啊！祝福祝福祝福你，願父神的恩惠，願耶穌的慈愛。願聖靈的感動，常常與你同在。祝福祝福祝福你啊！祝福祝福祝福你，祝福祝福祝福你啊！祝福祝福祝福你，願父神的恩惠，願耶穌的慈愛，願聖靈的感動，常常與你同在。祝福祝福祝福你啊！祝福祝福祝福你，祝福祝福祝福你啊！祝福祝福祝福你，願父神的恩惠，願耶穌的慈愛，願聖靈的感動，常常與你同在。祝福祝福祝福你啊！祝福祝福祝福你，祝福祝福祝福你啊！祝福祝福祝福你，祝福祝福祝福你啊！祝福祝福祝福你，祝福祝福祝福你啊！祝福祝福祝福你。
願嘅新一年，我哋會繼續去蒙主耶穌基督去蒙福。願我哋將一切榮耀歸於我哋嘅真神，榮耀歸於真神。
榮耀歸於真神，他成就大事，為愛世人生子，賜下獨生子。盡信他生命每人贖罪受苦，永生滿意大愛人任何進來。讚美主，讚美主，主佢聆聽主聲。讚美主，讚美主，我們快樂歡樂。 是我主。 福不一次重來，讓這歌頌的主，讓光照諸天，是愛間的夢想處，一次信實，並此刻歡樂饒恕。
弟兄姊妹請坐。我哋今個月嘅月歌主是葡萄樹，喺約翰福音15章5節嗰度話：我是葡萄樹，你們是枝子，常在我裡面的，我也常在他裡面。這人就多結果子，因為離了我，你們就不能作什麼。我哋喺以下落嚟嘅時候，用我哋唱月歌嘅時候，再反省我哋點樣去，好似耶穌基督喺聖經上面講話，我哋要去點樣去作葡萄樹，去點樣結果子。然後再一次提醒喺新一年，我哋點樣去喺靈裏邊，我哋去點樣再多結果子。今個月嘅月歌主是葡萄樹。
我的主是葡萄樹，我是枝子，神我在你裡面，你在我的裡面，用我此生緊緊靠近你，一生與主相依。我的主是葡萄樹，我是枝子，神我在你裡面，你在我的裡面，用我此生緊緊靠近你，一生不離開你。求主修剪我，沒有保留，為你我願全力結果，應結果。求主修剪我，雜質像消除，讓我可似小樹。我的主是葡萄樹，我是枝子，神我在你裡面，你在我的裡面，用我此生緊緊靠近你，一生與主相依。我的主是葡萄樹，我是枝子，神我在你裡面，你在我的裡面，用我此生緊緊靠近你，一生不離開你。求主修剪我，沒有保留，為你我願全力結果，應結果。求主修剪我，雜質盡消除，讓我可似常住。求主修剪我，沒有保留，為你我願全力結果，應結果。求主 主是葡萄樹，我是枝子，神我在你裏面，你做我的裏面，用我此生緊緊靠近你，一生不離開你。
就好似頭先首詩歌一樣，讓我哋去緊靠主，去唔離開佢。我哋又落嚟首詩歌，去求主喺新嘅一年，去點樣去煉淨我哋，求主嘅靈喺我當中，去幫助我哋，去煉淨佢，順服佢，聆聽佢，煉淨我。
眼睛我，使我更像你；吸引我，使我更爱你。所有梦想和骄傲都放在你脚前，我要完全顺服。
炼净我，使我更像你；吸引我，使我更爱你。所有梦想和骄傲都放在你脚前，我要完全顺服。献上生命，完全为你用，放下自己，愿你的荣耀，全心跟随，活出你呼召。父神，我只愿为你活，炼净我，使我更像你；吸引我，使我更爱你。所有梦想和骄傲都放在你脚前，我要完全顺服。献上生命，完全为你用，放下自己，愿你的荣耀，全心跟随，活出你呼召。父神，我只愿为你活，献上生命，完全为你用，放下自己，愿你的荣耀，全心跟随，活出你呼召。父神，我只愿为你活，献上生命，完全为你用，放下自己，愿你的荣耀，全心跟随，活出你呼召。父神，我只愿为你活。最后一次，父神，我只愿为你活。父神，我只愿为你活。
現在係讀經時間，請弟兄姊妹站立，靜心聆聽神嘅話語。今日嘅經文係記載喺《申命記》第4章1至9節。以色列人啊，現在我所教訓你們的律例典章，你們要聽從遵行，好叫你們存活，得以進入耶和華你們列祖之神所賜給你們的地，承受為業。所吩咐你們的話，你們不可加添，也不可刪減，好叫你們遵守我所吩咐的，就是耶和華你們神的命令。耶和華因巴力毗珥的事所行的，你們親眼看見了。凡隨從巴力毗珥的人，耶和華你們的神都從你們中間除滅了。唯有你們專靠耶和華你們神的人，今日全都存活。我照着耶和華我神所吩咐的，將律例典章教訓你們，使你們在所要進去得為業的地上遵行。所以你們要謹守遵行，這就是你們在萬民眼前的智慧聰明。他們聽見這一切律例，必說：這大國的人真是有智慧有聰明。那一大國的人有神與他們相近，像耶和華我們的神，在我們求告他的時候與我們相近呢？又哪一大國有這樣公義的律例典章，像我今日在你們面前所陳明的這一切律法呢？你只要謹慎殷勤保守你的心靈，免得忘記你親眼所看見的事，又免得你這一生這事離開你們的心，總要傳給你的子子孫孫。願神祝福佢嘅話語，大家請坐。
我哋一齊祈禱。天父上帝，我哋再一次感謝你，我哋讚美你豐富嘅恩典，感謝你保守，感謝你看顧，感謝你憐憫，感謝你嘅祝福。最後我哋再一次感謝你過去一年嘅帶領，感謝你嘅恩典真係夠我哋用。就好似你自己嘅話語喺詩篇65篇11章講過，你係以恩典為年歲嘅冠冕。主啊，你的路徑都滴下之油。主啊，我哋感謝你過去一年嘅看顧保守。主啊，可能我哋有遇到困難嘅，我哋感謝你恩典夠我哋用，帶領我哋經過困難。主啊，我哋蒙福，我哋感謝你過去嘅祝福。主啊，我哋將我哋新嘅一年再一次帶到你嘅面前。主啊，願主你嘅恩典真係每日與我哋同在，亦願主你嘅聖靈幫助我哋每個弟兄姊妹喺你面前更加嘅學習你自己嘅話語嘅教導，叫我哋每個人喺主嘅裏邊能夠成長，叫我哋喺靠住主耶穌基督嘅恩典能夠長大成人，成為神所重用嘅兒女。主啊，我哋願你祝福帶領我哋每一個弟兄姊妹，叫我哋喺我哋周圍嘅環境裏邊，我哋所接觸嘅人，無論係喺工作、喺學校，或者係我哋侍奉嘅環境裏邊，使用我哋每個人，叫我哋每個人緊緊嘅跟隨你。真係好似聖經講，你係葡萄樹，我哋係枝子，我哋要常常在你嘅裏邊，你亦都常常在我們嘅裏邊，使到我哋能夠結果，榮耀主你嘅名。父神，我哋仰望你帶領祝福我哋呢個新嘅一年，我哋有更新嘅開始，叫我哋更加嘅蒙福，更加嘅被你使用。父神，我哋喺度亦都紀念到我哋弟兄姊妹中間嘅需要。仲有我哋為着阿 Michelle 嚟到祈禱。主啊，我哋知道佢嘅媽媽前嗰幾日喺香港被主接走。主啊，我哋願你憐憫看顧Michelle 佢個女同埋女婿，佢哋而家已經喺香港。我哋願主你 呢個咁困難嘅時間、咁憂傷嘅時間裏邊，安慰佢哋一家人。主啊，俾佢哋靠住你嘅恩典嚟到處理應該處理嘅後事。主啊，我哋亦願主你自己嘅靈將呢個天上嚟嘅平安、安慰嚟到圍繞住呢一家，帶領佢哋平安嘅翻嚟。主啊，我亦為著我哋教會弟兄姊妹其他嘅需要仰望你。主啊，我哋紀念到我哋當中，可能有啲人係要揾工作嘅，佢哋經濟係有問題嘅，我哋求主你憐憫一一嘅看顧。主係見到我哋當中有重擔嘅，心靈裏邊憂傷嘅。主啊，幫助我哋將呢個重擔、將呢個憂傷帶到十字架面前放低。主啊，我哋願主你帶領祝福我哋前邊嘅道路。主，我哋感謝你今日帶領Brother Tommy 喺我哋中間證道，我哋願主你嘅靈與佢同在，高滿佢嘅心，高滿佢嘅口，叫佢所講嘅從你嗰度嚟，幫助我哋弟兄姊妹更加明白你嘅心意，亦幫助漢文翻譯得清楚明白。我哋祈求感謝祝福，奉主名求，阿門。咁好高興Brother Tommy 喺我哋中間證道，我哋將時間交俾佢。
新年快樂，恭喜恭喜你哋。It's wonderful to be together on this special day.
高興今日喺今日嘅特別日子同大家一齊。
We have already received a blessing from the beautiful music and beautiful voices.
我哋喺頭先嘅歌聲同埋好美妙嘅歌聲裏邊得到祝福。
And Hanman can do a perfect job. You won't translate that. I don't have to use simple words. He knows all the vocabulary. Good. So thank you, Hanman. Thank you. Okay. Today in the Bible reading, this story comes from the book of Deuteronomy.
今日我哋睇《申命記》。
What is the book of Deuteronomy?
《申命記》係一本咩書呢？
What does that word mean? Like in English, we don't really understand its meaning.
呢個字係咩意思？
It means the second giving of the law.
申命記意思係第二次再頒布神嘅律例。
And all of the words that we read today, they come out of the mouth of one man.
我今日所讀嘅説話都係嚟自一個人，
The man who wrote this book.
就係寫呢本書嘅人。
Who is that?
係邊個？
Moses.
係摩西。
Moses wrote the first 5 books of the Bible.
摩西寫聖經頭嗰5本書。
Deuteronomy is book number 5. It's his last book. He's closing up his ministry time.
申命記係第5本，摩西最後寫嗰本書。
So Moses is speaking, and to whom is he speaking? Who is receiving these words?
咁摩西喺度講嘢，咁邊個聽？講俾邊個聽？
The people of Israel.
就係以色列人。
And where are they?
佢哋喺邊度？
Are they in Israel?
佢哋係咪以色列啊？
The promised land?
係咪應許之地呢？
Not yet.
仲未。
They have come through the desert, and they're right at the border, about to go in.
佢哋經過曠野，準備要入到去應許之地。
But wait a minute. These people are special.
呢啲人好特別喎。
Special because they are the second generation of Israelites to go through the desert.
呢班人呢，特別嘅地方就係佢係經過曠野，呢班係第2代嘅人。
Their parents had come out of slavery into the desert.
佢哋嘅父母從埃及出嚟，去到曠野，
But they had all died.
但係佢全部死晒。
This was a special generation.
呢個特別嘅一代。
So the book of Deuteronomy is like one long farewell speech of Moses.
咁申命記可以話係摩西一個好長嘅道別嘅説話。
Moses, remember when God called him at the burning bush, when God called him, Moses gave an excuse, no, I can't because I can't speak well.
咁我記得當初神去呼召摩西嘅時候，摩西話：唔得啊，神，我唔識講嘢。
But here, he gives a speech that's so long, it probably took several days.
話但係呢度摩西講呢個演講好長。
And guess how old he was?
摩西嗰時候幾老咧？
120 years old.
120歲啦。
He had finished his ministry,
佢完成佢嘅侍奉，
but he could not go into the promised land.
但係佢唔能夠進入到應許之地。
If you remember the story, it's a sad story.
如果你記得個故事係一個好悲傷嘅故事。
One day, Moses was listening to all the people complain about they didn't have water.
咁有一日，摩西聽到啲以色列人喺度不斷嘅去投訴話冇水飲，
All those thousands of people complaining and saying bad things against Moses and against God.
哇！成千嘅人喺度向摩西投訴，向神埋怨。
And what did God say to Moses? He said, Moses, this big rock over here, speak to it and the water will come out.
咁神同摩西講話：呢兩個石頭，你同呢個石頭講説話，就會有水出嚟㗎。
Moses is so upset that he takes his stick and he hits the rock.
咁但摩西好嬲，摩西揸支棍去剝嗰個石頭。
God still gave them water,
咁神俾佢哋有水飲，
but Moses did not obey completely.
但係摩西卻冇完全去聽神話。
And the result is that God says, you cannot go in the promised land.
咁結果神就話：摩西你唔能夠進入到應許之地。
That's a sad ending to a great man.
呢個係一個咁偉大嘅人物，一個好悲傷嘅結局。
And at the end of this book right here, we have an addition that says that Moses went up this mountain. He could look across and see the promised land, but he could not go in.
咁喺《申命記》最後嘅時候有記載話，摩西上到山上去望應許之地，但係佢唔能夠進入。
So let's think of the setting. Here is Moses speaking to the second generation of Israelites.
呢個就係呢個環境，摩西去對當時以色列嘅第二代人去説話。
And in his long farewell speech in Deuteronomy, we can see three different parts.
咁喺摩西呢啲咁長嘅臨別嘅説話裏邊，我哋睇到有三個部分。
Chapters 1 to 3 are looking at the past.
咁第一章到第三章係回顧以往。
Moses is reminding this second generation of what happened to their parents.
咁摩西喺度提醒呢個第二代，佢哋嘅上一代發生咩事。
And then, in this part here, chapters 4 to about 26, we see that Moses is talking about the present, the need to obey.
咁由第四章到第26章就摩西講緊現在要去遵守嘅事情。
Remember when the children of Israel came out of Egypt, they came to this Mount Sinai, and Moses went up the mountain.
咁喺以色列人出埃及去到西乃山啊，摩西上西乃山。
And what happened up the top of the mountain?
喺山上發生咩事呢？
God himself gave the 10 commandments, the basic law, to Moses.
神俾摩西十誡。
We find that story in chapter 20 of Exodus.
我哋喺出埃及嘅第20章記載。
Now, our reading today is chapter 4 of Deuteronomy.
我今日讀申命記嘅第4章。
If you want to continue reading, go home and look at chapter 5.
或者你翻屋企可以繼續讀埋第5章。
You know what chapter 5 is?
第5章講咩呢？
It's just a repeat of the 10 commandments.
第5章就係重複神嘅十誡。
Moses wants to be sure that this generation, that they know God's laws.
摩西要呢第二代去清楚知道神嘅律例，
Not just know, but obey.
唔單止係知道，仲要去聽從。
Moses talked about the past, he's talking about the present, and then he talks about the future when he won't be there to help them.
咁摩西講到過去，講到現在，亦都講將來，對自己唔喺度嘅時候。
He's saying when you go into the new land, you're going to see things that you've never seen before. You're going to have different experiences.
咁摩西話：當你入到應許之地嘅時候，你會見到你以前從未見過嘅嘢。
They will see the local people in the land worshiping idols.
你會見到當地嘅人去拜緊啲偶像。
And Moses is preparing them, saying, you must make a choice.
咁摩西同啲以色列人講：你要做一個決定。
God sets before you a choice.
神喺你面前俾你個選擇。
There are blessings if you obey.
如果你聽從神，你要得到祝福。
And there are curses if you disobey.
如果你唔聽從神，你會得到咒詛。
So God is saying, I'm giving you a choice today.
神話我俾你今日一個選擇，
Obey or disobey.
聽從抑或唔聽從。
And do you know that you and I, we still have that same choice?
你同我今日仍然有呢個選擇。
Our relationship with God is not one that He forces us.
我哋同神嘅關係唔係神逼我哋。
You can't have a relationship of love if there's force.
如果你唔能夠有愛嘅關係，如果係被逼嘅話，
It must be a desire, a willing to give and to love back.
係要你自發去願意去愛。
So Moses is warning these people about the future.
所以摩西喺度警告呢班第二代嘅人將來嘅事。
Let's think a little bit about this second generation of people.
咁咪睇下呢班第二代嘅人。
I was thinking about them and I thought, oh, they never experienced being slaves in Egypt. They don't know what it's like to be a slave.
呢班第二代嘅人，佢哋唔知道喺埃及做奴隸係咩樣，佢哋未經歷過。
They never experienced the great miracles of God to free the people of Israel.
佢哋未經歷過神點樣去釋放呢班以色列人喺埃及出嚟。
Remember when God called Moses, he said, Moses, go tell the king of Egypt, let my people go.
咁神呼召摩西嘅時候，叫摩西去同法老王講話，俾我嘅子民離開。
What did the king say? Of course not. They're my slaves. They can't go.
咁法老王梗係話唔俾。
And you know what God did? He shook up that country with all of those miracles, different plagues to force the king to allow the people to go.
咁神就喺埃及行咗10災俾去教訓啲埃及人。
And finally, the people of Israel get ready and go. You know, they estimate there are around 2 million people total went out into the desert.
估計當時有200萬嘅以色列人要出埃及。
They go out and they come to the shore of the Red Sea.
佢哋離開埃及，去到紅海邊，
The great body of water is in front of them.
前邊有大海，
It's too far to swim to the other side.
因為唔可以游水，
There are no boats.
冇船。
And they turn around and look back and guess who's coming?
咁望翻轉頭後邊有邊個嚟緊呢？
The king of Egypt changed his mind and he sends his army out to get them and bring them back.
埃及皇帝改變嘅心意叫軍隊嚟追佢哋。
Now, you think if you're that person there, the water is in front of you, the great, like an ocean is in front of you, and the enemy is behind you.
咁你想象一下，你前面有水，後邊有追兵，
What are you going to do?
你會點做呢？
What will you think?
你會點諗呢？
哎呀，冇辦法啊. Nothing I can do.
冇嘢可以做。
So, looking forward is a problem, looking back is a problem.
前面有問題，後邊有問題。
And you know, just like those people entering a new land, you and I are entering a new year.
咁我哋同呢班人好似一樣，佢哋進入一個新嘅地方，我哋進入新嘅一年。
Our road this year, we're going to see a lot of problems, as normal in life.
我哋今年嘅道路會見到好多困難，係好似同平常一樣，
It could be problems of health,
或者係身體健康嘅問題。
all the things that we have that are problems in a sinful world.
我哋有好多問題，因為我哋喺一個罪惡嘅世界裏邊。
This year, you may have an ocean in front and the enemy behind.
可能你今年可能你前面有水，後邊有追兵。
Don't just look forward or back, but look up.
唔好望前，唔好望後，望上。
Those people had still not understood the great power of God.
嗰班人仲未認識到神嘅大能。
They were standing there with fear in their heart when the sea began to open up.
咁當紅海分開嘅時候，佢呢班人心裏仍然係害怕。
Can you imagine their surprise? Like, oh my goodness, and it opened up and they crossed on dry ground.
你可唔可以想象當時佢哋嘅心情呢？當紅海分開，佢哋能夠行喺乾地上邊，
What an amazing miracle of God.
一個奇妙嘅神蹟。
But Moses is speaking to the second generation. They were not there.
但係而家摩西係向第二代人講，佢哋冇經歷過呢啲紅海嘅事。
You know what I was thinking? That this younger generation, they were not farmers.
咁我哋諗下呢第二代人，佢哋唔係農夫，
for their whole life, where did they get their bread?
咁啊呢一世佢哋成世人去得邊度揾到嘢食咧？
To get their food, they had to pick up their basket, walk outside their tent, and just pick it up.
佢哋去攞食物就係攞個籃，跟住行出個帳幕裏邊就喺地下執。
Wouldn't it be nice if we did not have to go to HEB
咁如果你同我唔使去超級市場買嘢好唔好咧？
and we just walk out our house and go there and pick up the food that's there?
咁我就行出門口就執有嘢食啦，執到。
That generation, that's all they knew. God gave them manna every single day of their life.
呢班第二代嘅人就係咁啦，佢成世佢就係神俾佢哋馬拿供應俾佢哋。
But when they step into the promised land, no more manna.
但係佢哋入到應許之地之後，就再沒有馬拿。
Moses saying, you're going to meet some new experiences.
你會有新嘅經驗。
And I was thinking too, they're in this extremely dry desert. Everything is brown, sand and rock.
咁我諗下呢啲曠野地方都係沙石啊，全部都係黃冚冚嘅。
Even today, you can look up pictures on the internet. It's just totally dry there.
我哋睇下，想像到嗰啲好乾嘅地方。
All of that generation, they had never seen a river,
呢啲第二代人從未見過個河，
never seen a lake,
從未見過個湖，
or even a green field.
從未見過個青綠嘅草原。
Now, God is going to give them a very, very severe warning before they go into the land.
咁啊，當佢進入呢個應許之地之前，神俾佢哋一個好嚴重嘅警告。
If you will look at the text that's in your bulletin or in the Bible if you have it,
我哋睇下聖經今日嘅經文。
look at verse 3, and Moses is going to talk about something that had happened in the past.
咁第三節啊，摩西講到以往發生一件事。
Here we see that Moses is saying, verse 3 and 4, you saw with your own eyes what the Lord did at Baal Peor. The Lord your God destroyed from among you everyone who followed the Baal of Peor. But all of you who held fast to the Lord your God are still alive today.
第三同第四節，耶和華因巴力比爾嘅事所行嘅，你們親眼看見了。凡隨從巴力比爾嘅人，耶和華你們嘅神都從你們中間除滅了。唯有你們專靠耶和華你們神嘅人，今日全都存活。
What is Moses talking about here?
摩西講緊咩呢？呢件事
He's talking about something that happened not too long in the past. It's written in detail in the book of Numbers.
咁呢件事發生冇幾耐之前嘅，喺記載喺民數記。
This is in the land of Moab.
喺摩押地發生嘅事。
And Israel was passing through this land on the way to their promised land.
咁啊，以色列人去經過嘅地方。
Now we have the story in the book of Numbers. The king of Moab was worried about all of these millions of people crossing his land.
咁喺民數記度睇到呢個摩押地嘅皇帝就好擔心呢成班咁多以色列人去經過佢嘅地方。
And he calls for an evil priest called Balaam, a man to come and to curse Israel, to say all these bad things.
咁呢個皇帝就揾一個好邪惡嘅先知去想去咒詛呢班以色列人。
And we have the story that Balaam, 3 times he tried to say bad things, but God put good things and blessings in his mouth.
咁啊，聖經記載呢個邪惡先知曾經3次想去咒詛呢以色列人，但係3次神都將祝福嘅説話擺喺呢個先知口裏邊。
You know the story. The king of Moab was upset. Oh no, you're supposed to curse them.
咁呢個摩押嘅皇帝梗係好嬲啦，點解你應該咒詛以色列人？
But something else happened that became a curse to Israel.
咁但係另外一件事成為以色列人嘅咒詛。
The story tells us that as they were camping near Moab, the women of Moab came out and invited the men of Israel to come in to visit their place.
咁如果呢件事記載到，當以色列人喺摩押地附近去紮營嘅時候，摩押嘅女人出嚟去引誘以色列人去到敬拜摩押嘅神。
And many of the men, thousands and thousands, followed the women and went into their bedroom.
咁有成千好多嘅以色列嘅男人跟咗呢啲摩押嘅女子犯唔道德嘅罪。
And after that, the women said, good, now we have a party. Let's go and dance and have a good time. And we'll bow down to our idol.
咁跟住呢班女人就一齊話：我哋一齊去慶祝啊！我哋去拜我哋嘅神。
You can imagine these men had never seen anything like this. They follow the women. They go to the party. And they bow down to these idols.
咁你可以想象下呢班人，以色列人從未見過咁嘅事，佢就跟住摩亞嘅女人去狂歡、去慶祝、去拜佢哋嘅神。
And we know that God punished them, and 24,000 men died because of that.
咁神懲罰佢哋，有2萬幾人死咗。
The curse and punishment came because they chose to disobey.
佢哋得到呢個懲罰同埋咒詛，因為佢哋唔聽從神。
So verse 3, Moses is saying, okay, you second generation, you saw this with your own eyes, what happened? So be careful.
所以第3節摩西再提醒翻佢哋，你哋睇見知道呢件事發生，所以小心。
He says that you are alive today because you obeyed.
摩西話：因為你哋今日存活，因為你哋聽從神。
Now, let's think about that older generation.
我再諗諗佢哋上一代，
Why had they all died in the desert?
點解佢哋全部死晒喺曠野？
Well, you probably know the story.
你知道個故事係點樣？
They had come fairly quickly from slavery in Egypt to the border of the promised land, and they should go in.
咁你知道故事，佢哋喺埃及做奴隸，出嚟好快就去到應許之地嘅旁邊啦。
It only would take about 2 months to cross the desert straight from Egypt to the promised land.
佢哋應該大概2個月左右，應該就去從埃及可以去到應許之地。
But this is over 40 years after.
但係經過40年之後，
What happened to that first generation?
嗰上一代發生咩事呢？
They saw all the miracles in Egypt to set them free.
佢哋喺埃及地睇到神一切嘅神蹟，
They walked through the Red Sea.
佢哋行過紅海，
They ate the manna from heaven every day.
佢哋食從天上而嚟嘅嗎哪。
And now they're at the border, and God says, go in and take the land. It's your land.
咁佢哋去到應許之地旁邊啦，神話你入去啦。
Well, they sent some men in first to look around, and they came out and gave a report.
咁呢班以色列人就派啲探子去睇一笪地方，咁佢哋翻嚟有個報告。
And most of those men said, oh, in Canaan, in the promised land, those men are big and strong.
咁佢哋翻嚟嘅報告就話：哇，入邊迦南地嘅人，哇，好大隻。
And there's no way that we can win.
哇，我哋冇辦法可以打贏。
They were afraid.
佢哋好驚。
Only 2 said,
只有2
yes,
個，
we can do it.
只有2個話我哋可以。
You know what God said to encourage them?
神對佢哋講咩呢？
He said, go in, don't be afraid, because I will fight your battles for you.
神同以色列人講話：你入去啦，唔使驚，我會為你去爭戰。
God will fight the battles for us.
神會為我哋去爭戰。
And the people said, no, we're too afraid to go in.
但係當時就話：我哋唔好驚，我哋唔去。
So what did God answer the people? What did he say?
咁神嘅回應係咩呢？
When they said, no, we won't go,
當呢班以色列人話：我哋唔去啊。
God said, okay,
咁神話：OK，好，
it's your choice.
好，呢個你嘅選擇，
But it has consequences.
有後果。
The same today.
今日都係，
When we refuse to go in to obey God,
當我哋唔去願意去聽從神嘅時候，
God doesn't come and force us,
神唔會逼我哋，
but there are consequences if we disobey.
但係我哋唔聽從嘅時候，我哋有後果。
In this story, we see a very sad ending for the first generation.
喺呢個故事裏面睇到第一代佢哋嘅結局好悲慘。
And Moses' prayer is that now the second generation will obey.
咁摩西喺度嘅祈禱就係希望呢第二代佢哋會聽從。
In the story today, I wrote down 3 points: hear, obey, and why. It's in your bulletin there.
咁今日我睇到有3點聽從。
All of these 3 points are in the very first verse of this reading.
咁呢個原歌同埋上面3個都喺第一節嗰度出現。
Let me read, or Honman can read the first verse. You don't need to read it, I know.
OK， 第一節，以色列人啊，現在我所教訓你們嘅律例典章，你們要聽從遵行，好叫你們存活，得以進入耶和華你們列祖之神所賜給你們的地，承受為業。
You need to hear.
你要去聽，
You need to listen with intent.
你要用心去聽。
You know, in our modern world, there are so many voices and so much noise out there.
喺我哋現今嘅世代，就好多聲音，好多雜音。
You know, on the computer, on the television, music everywhere, people talking and noise.
我哋喺電腦、我哋電視周圍好多嘅聲音，
It's hard to hear God at times.
有好多時候我哋好難聽到佢神，聽到神。
And the meaning of this here is to listen carefully.
呢個聽話要去小心去聽，
Listen with a desire to obey.
用願意去遵從嘅心去聽。
Like God is speaking you. What? Okay, let me be sure I hear it because I want to obey you.
我哋要去聽神話，我哋願意去遵行你所吩咐。
What if I told you that this morning when I came, I took a 紅包, a 利是, and I put $1,000 in there.
嗱，如果我話俾你聽，我今日入嚟嘅時候，我有封利是1000蚊，
But I hid the packet outside somewhere in the garden. It's hidden there.
我喺出邊收埋咗喺個地方。
And if I tell you, listen carefully, I'm going to tell you where it is.
嗱，咁你小心聽，我話俾你聽喺邊喎。
Everybody wake up and listen. Where is it?
咁你哋個個都會好要聽下喺邊度。
Something that we want very badly, we'll listen to.
我哋好想要嘅嘢，我哋會聽。
Now, we may think a 紅包 is very precious, but what God gives is more precious than that.
咁我諗個利是或者好寶貴，但係神所俾啊更加寶貴。
What does God want to give you?
神俾我哋咩咧？
Give you life,
神俾我哋生命，
eternal life.
永遠嘅生命，
Nothing is more precious.
冇嘢更加寶貴。
Now, second thing is obey.
第二就係去聽從、遵從，
How to obey?
點去遵守？
With a heart that desires to obey.
有一個願意去遵從嘅心。
You know, I remember sometimes when we had teenagers, we say, okay, stop playing, no computer, you have to do your homework first.
咁啊諗翻或者我哋有年輕嘅仔女嘅時候，我嗌佢哋唔好再玩電腦啦，做功課。
I think you've said the same thing too.
你都試過啦，可能。
We all have. And so here's my son. Okay, you know, he goes to obey.
咁我仔你聽到話 OK， 我聽你話啦。
There's a word in English called grudging. You know, you don't really want to, you kind of have to.
但係就係願意去聽，但係其實係好唔願意去做。
That's not the way to obey God.
呢個唔係我哋去聽神嘅方法。
Obey with joy.
我哋去用喜樂嘅心去聽從。
And then in closing, here's the last point, why?
最後就係點解？
It's in verse 4.
喺第4節，
It's why? Because God wants to give you life, wants to bless you,
點解？因為神想俾你生命，神想祝福你，
so that you may live and go in and take the land.
所以致你能夠存活進入得到嗰個地方。
So God is saying, obey me for your own sake.
所以神話你聽從我係為咗你嘅好處。
But guess what? God is not only thinking of Israel at that moment.
但神唔單止當時唔係淨係為咗以色列人。
Look at verse 6.
睇下第6節、
Verse 6 and verse 7.
第6、第7節。
God is saying, Israel, I want you to obey because the other nations around you will look at you and say, oh, they are so blessed. They are special people. Why?
神話我要以色列人你聽從我，點解？因為我想你周圍嘅人都去知道話點解以色列咁特別。
Because God loves the whole world.
神愛整個世界。
From the very beginning, God choosing Israel and blessing Israel was not only for their sake,
神喺起初揀選以色列人嘅時候，唔係單單係為咗要祝福以色列人，
but through Israel, the whole world can be blessed.
神係要透過以色列人去祝福整個世界。
It says the other nations.
喺度講話周圍其他嘅大國，
That
身邊
means all the Chinese.
包括所有中國人，
God is thinking of you.
神都諗住我哋，
Those in Africa,
嗰啲喺非洲嘅人，
the whole world.
整個世界。
God is telling his people, obey me and you will be special and other people will come and try to find out why.
神話對以色列人話，你要聽從我，等到周圍嘅人都去嚟尋求神。
God says, take my word, don't add anything, don't take anything out.
神話你 聽從我説話，唔可以加，唔可以減，
and obey my word.
遵從我説話。
So this year, as we enter a new year, we all have a choice.
今日我哋進入新嘅一年，我哋都有一個選擇。
And we need to help each other, to encourage each other in this Christian walk.
我哋大家彼此幫助、彼此鼓勵，行呢條基督徒嘅道路。
It's not easy to obey God.
聽從神唔容易，
Some things, yes.
有時或者可以，
But when God says you must love your enemy, ooh, that's hard.
但係神話你要愛你嘅仇敵，咁就好難。
Encourage one another.
我哋彼此鼓勵。
Look at the past of how good God has been to you.
我哋諗翻過往神對我哋有幾多恩典，
Learn and obey His word
去學習去聽從神嘅説話。
and encourage one another.
我哋彼此鼓勵。
Amen.
咁就翻到頭尾嘅信息，讓我哋一齊站立去唱回應詩歌，回應神嘅話語，見證我。
连接我，使我更像你；吸引我，使我更爱你。所有梦想和骄傲都放在你脚前，我要完全顺服。将生命完全为你用，放下自己，愿你的荣耀，全心跟随，活出你呼召。父神，我只愿为你活。连紧我，使我更像你；吸引我，使我更爱你。所有梦想和骄傲都放在你脚前，我要完全顺服。献上生命，完全为你用，放下自己，愿你的荣耀，全心跟随，活出你呼召。父神，我只愿为你活。献上生命，完全为你用，放下自己，愿你的荣耀，全心跟随，活出你呼召。父神，我只愿为你活。
請大家低頭為奉獻禱告。慈愛天父，實在感謝你，感謝你招聚我哋一班弟兄姊妹嚟到殿裏邊嚟到敬拜你，都感謝你帶領我哋進入新嘅一年。父，我哋教會今年嘅主題係往下扎根，向上結果。願呢個都能夠成為我哋一生嘅主題嚟到去做呢件嘅事情。求神都幫助我哋一個謙卑受教嘅心喺你嘅話語當中，嚟到更加去明白你嘅旨意，亦都幫助我哋有一個順服係完全順服去遵行你嘅旨意嘅心，以致我哋所做嘅都能夠去榮耀你嘅名。然後我哋係奉獻我哋嘅金錢，我哋嘅自己，求神亦都係祝福潔淨，讓我哋能夠係做一個榮神的人。 去使萬人得救嘅一個更加係能蒙你喜悅嘅兒女。感謝你垂聽我哋嘅禱告，禱告係奉靠主耶穌嘅名求，阿門。
我哋再一次多謝 Brother Tomei 俾我哋嘅信息，非常好嘅提醒。我哋願意我哋每個人喺呢個2023年嘅新年嘅嚟嘅時候，我哋更加嘅蒙神嘅帶領祝福，使到我哋成為佢所重用嘅兒女。我哋下邊係歡迎同報告時間。我哋首先歡迎有一位新嘅朋友係Ryan Yuan 喺嗰度我哋非常嘅歡迎佢。佢係David Chin 嘅親戚，係咪 ？David Chin 嘅親戚我哋非常嘅歡迎。佢住喺 Houston OK。我哋亦都好歡迎我哋嘅老朋友阿 Him Low 同阿 Helen Low 佢哋翻嚟我哋中間，我哋非常之高興。佢哋喺嗰度大家都知道佢哋係邊位我哋非常之掛念佢哋其實佢哋離開咗好似2-3年所以我哋感謝神帶領佢哋翻嚟。我哋願意佢哋翻嚟探，唔單止探我哋，亦都同我哋一齊有呢個溝通彼此嘅鼓勵。再一次歡迎你哋 ，OK？And then 我哋亦都好歡迎阿 Ray 同阿 Cindy 佢哋唔知係第2次嚟探我哋係咪？我哋好歡迎佢哋佢哋好叻㗎，廣東話又得，國語又得，所以我哋好歡迎佢哋翻嚟同我哋一齊敬拜。有冇第一次其他嘅朋友第一次嚟我中間有冇？或者係老朋友翻嚟探我哋嘅有冇？好 OK。我哋再一次感謝神。尋日我哋喺呢度有一個聯合嘅聚集就係我哋國語部同廣東部喺埋一齊。我哋有170幾個人喺呢度，所以我哋感謝神俾我哋同國語部弟兄姊妹非常好嘅溝通。亦都有相當多嘅朋友新朋友嚟探我哋，咁希望我哋以後去同佢哋繼續嘅聯絡。報告事項只係幾樣嘢啫。第一就係今日因為係新年，所以我哋個廚房休假等我哋弟兄姊妹有啲休息，所以呢係冇 lunch 嘅但係下個禮拜日呢係我哋CBC 嘅可能可以講係 tradition 啦我哋慶祝新年所以係下個禮拜日。點樣慶祝法呢？係我哋每個家庭呢帶一隻 chicken 翻嚟煮咗嘅 chicken，OK？咁呢，然之後早啲帶嚟，或者你中意帶其他嘢都 OK 㗎早啲嚟咁就放喺廚房嗰朝早呢，弟兄姊妹喺廚房佢哋會收你帶嚟嗰啲食物，咁佢哋會幫我哋手放喺 oven 或者係幫佢哋切咗咁樣。我哋 lunch 呢，我哋成個教會一齊慶祝新年，呢個係非常之好嘅我哋嘅習俗我哋一齊慶祝新年。所以弟兄姊妹注意 ，OK？ 仲有呢係阿 Geraldine 呢，希望我哋廣東部嘅弟兄姊妹呢係多啲去參與侍奉，因為點解呢？我哋嘅 nursery 呢好需要我哋嘅長輩又好，我哋嘅成人又好，去幫手抱 baby OK？ 因為呢，我哋而家 nursery 開翻啦，佢哋發覺呢，我哋同工係唔夠，所以如果你係中意抱細路仔嘅話呢我哋好歡迎你去登記同埋去諗下點樣去幫手。咁呢，如果我哋多啲廣東部同埋中文部、國語部嘅弟兄姊妹幫手呢，咁我哋呢個 nursery 嘅同工呢，咁佢哋就輕鬆一啲 OK？ 所以你翻去祈禱求神感動你。如果你有興趣嘅話，你上網去登記咁需要呢係按照佢哋嘅規例呢係有啲嘅訓練嘅但係呢唔緊要，如果你唔識聽英文嘅話，我哋可以幫手等你能夠去參與細路哥嘅侍奉 OK？ 咁其他事項請你翻慢慢睇，我哋一齊起立唱3一頌。讚美真神萬福之間，地上生靈當讚主人， 天上萬軍中讚主名，讚美聖父、聖子、聖靈。阿們。我哋一齊祈禱，願主耶穌基督嘅恩惠、天父上帝嘅慈愛、聖靈感動，常與我哋眾弟兄姊妹同在，直到主耶穌基督翻嚟。阿們。默禱之後散會。
唔好意思，我最後一次搞錯咗，我唔記得咗。